Good afternoon. Good afternoon and greetings from Jakarta. My name is Calvin Ko from Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia. Welcome to Heart Indonesia-Ukraine Youth Dialogue, Empathy and Solidarity in Times of War. Co-convened by Kianu Jalal and Barbara Hamianin, supported by Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia. As everybody knows, the war has been going on for more than 6 months since the first day invasions on the 24th February 2022. Everybody at that time was shocked and surprised by a move by Russia that changed the course of relationship, dynamic and geopolitical situations in East Europe, even in the world. Therefore, FVCI stands very clear in the sides of Ukraine's, and we see the importance of empowering youth to play a vital role in a civic engagement as a major stakeholders in their grassroots communities, in particular in voicing out what is right and what is value that needs to be preserved and needs to be continuous. It is the hope of this program to strengthen the people-to-people connection between Indonesia and Ukraine through the facilitations of a heart-to-heart youth dialogue. The youth dialogue aims to signify the importance of people-to-people connections, as well as to provide more understanding of the situations in Ukraine. It will be an intense and intellectual heart-to-heart. And this dialogue between the two bright youth group from Indonesia and Ukraine will be candid and also full of honesty and frankness. So before we move on to the first agenda, I would like to invite you to watch a video, and please, Committee, you can play the video.
Kemerdekaan itu segalanya bagi Indonesia.
Bagi Ukraina juga.
Kedaulatan NKRI itu harga mati bagi Indonesia.
Ukraina juga.
Persatuan bangsa Indonesia itu sakral bagi Indonesia.
Ukraina juga.
Kami mencintai demokrasi.
Ukraina juga.
Indonesia adalah bangsa yang bermartabat, yang punya harga diri.
Bagi Ukraina juga. Kami tidak mau diintervensi bangsa lain.
Kami juga tidak mau.
Hidup damai itu penting bagi saya.
Bagi saya juga.
Keadilan dan kebenaran harus ditegakkan.
Bagi saya juga.
Hak asasi manusia itu tidak boleh dilanggar.
Setuju sekali.
Beri kemanusiaan itu penting bagi saya.
Bagi saya juga.
Segala hal yang sakral bagi Indonesia.
Sakral juga bagi Ukraina.
Semangat untuk kebebasan dari kita tidak dapat dipatahkan. Merdeka atau mati.
Mari kita doakan perdamaian dapat tercapai di Ukraina.
Laksanakan resolusi PBB yang diajukan Indonesia mengecam invasi Rusia. Kita pertahankan bahkan dengan nyawa.
Oleh karena itu,
selamat merayakan 77 tahun kemerdekaan Indonesia.
Selamat merayakan dan mempertahankan 31 tahun kemerdekaan Ukraina.
a video that shows how Indonesian and Ukrainian has a lot of things in common. A lot of commons in values, commons in how we protect our country and our homeland. Now, I would like to invite the first lead speakers from Ukrainian side, Barbara Hamiani. Barbara, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, my name is Barbara, and I would love to introduce my country to you and the history of our conflict with Russia. So Ukraine is the biggest country in Europe. It's situated just in the center of the Europe. It's absolutely beautiful and has such a deep history. The history of Russian-Ukrainian conflict is unfortunately very ancient too. So let me just briefly tell you about the last centuries and some of the tragedies brought to our saint land. So let's start with the 18th century. Ekaterina II, Russian empress who liquidated the Zaporizhian siege, the formation of Ukrainian Cossacks, our army, our warriors, our defenders, enslavement of the Ukrainians, ban of our languages in the schools, in the libraries, in theaters, October Revolution, Ukrainians fighting against the Empire forces and the Red Army at the same time, Soviet occupation of our territory, destruction of our culture, mass murders of our Kobzari, the wandering musicians, deportation of the Crimean Tatars, and the idea of Russian superiority is being taught in our schools. Holodomor, the artificial starvation created by the Soviet government, genocide of the Ukrainians and the try to replace them with Russians. It's impossible to believe, but during the Soviet time, we also had the Shot revival, the mass murders of the Ukrainian elite, writers, poets, artists, musicians were being killed and tortured by the KGB. Artists are being sent to the gulags for the high treason. Collapse of the Soviet Union, and at last our independence on the 24th of August in 1991. But unfortunately, it wasn't the end. In 2014 is the beginning of the hybrid war between Russia and Ukraine again. Russian mercenaries and troops on Ukrainian Donbass, annexation of Crimea, and today, full-scale invasion, terror, death, thousands of civilians murdered and tortured, occupied territories, civilian infrastructures is being ruined and bombed every day. This war already lasts for 8 years, but this battle for the centuries. And if we won't stop them now, our children will be forced to continue this fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Now I would like to move to Indonesian side. I would like to invite Keanu Jalal. Keanu, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi guys, how's everybody doing? I hope you guys are all doing all right. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Keanu Jalal, and today I'll be your head Indonesian speaker for the day. But before we get to the touchy stuff that are a little bit more emotional, let me take a moment to first, break the ice. I'm sure that at least a few of the Ukrainians joining us may not know too much about Indonesia. So really quickly, let me just give you a brief rundown on our country. Welcome to Indonesian 101. Don't worry, it's nothing overly complicated or deeply profound, because we'll save that for later. But for now, just the basics, nothing overly somber or despondent. Not yet, at least. Firstly, we're the largest Muslim democracy in the world. Though we're one nation, endless bits and pieces of our culture are fragmented into the cultures of over 600 ethnic groups. We only have one official language for the entire nation, which is Bahasa Indonesia, but we have roughly 300 local languages, which is pretty interesting. Unfortunately, we were colonized by the Dutch for 350 years, so quite a long time we were facing oppression. So that was kind of a bummer, but at least we got some pretty tasty cuisine, you know. Rendang and nasi goreng were voted as the #1 best foods in the world by CNN, which I think is pretty debatable, but yeah. And we have a pretty good fashion sense. We were the original creators of batik. So all in all, Indonesia is pretty cool, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We'll get to a bit more of the complicated, profound stuff later on, but for now, I just wanted to break the ice and break in the new Ukrainian youth into giving them a sense of what Indonesia is like.
There you go. A story from two countries, and I think this is a very good opportunity for each of us to know one another better. Yes, Indonesia and Ukraine is located in a very different part of the world, but we believe the relationship of the youth can be much stronger and stronger, and this time it's a good opportunity to make it that more happen. So I would like to start the dialogue between the two groups of the students, so that let's get more relaxed. So the first, let me explain how it works. The first round, I would like to invite all from our Ukrainian friends to share your stories. And then after that, the second round, I would like to invite from Indonesian side to share your point of view from Indonesia. Since I would like to repeat, our title today is Empathy and Solidarity in Times of War. So I think it's good to have a very candid conversations this afternoon. Now, I would like to start from Ukrainian side, which is I would like to, again, inviting Barbara. Barbara, please, the floor is yours.
Hello again, everybody. So now we are going to share about our emotional experience during the wartime. And my story started like nearly 6 months ago when the war began. I was forced to evacuate from my hometown because there were like Russian troops nearby, and my parents were absolutely upset and didn't know what to do. So they just tried to bring us somewhere where it's safe and peaceful. The evacuation took us so many hours and actually time. In the peaceful time, we could go from Kyiv to Lviv for, I think, 6 hours. The road won't take more. But when we were trying to evacuate, because of the block posts, because of the people running out of their homes, it took us nearly 24 hours. We were riding for the 2 days with our pads on our hands because we couldn't leave them. It was very dramatic because we didn't know what to do. We didn't know if we could return back home and if our home will be still standing there, if our friends will be okay and fine, because sometimes when you go to the basement, the phone isn't working there and you don't have any contact to them, and that's very traumatizing actually. We're sleeping on the floor of the old Soviet water park and listening to the air sirens. And after that, luckily we contacted our Indonesian friends, and me and my brother were evacuated with the Indonesian students to Poland and then to Indonesia. The most painful thing from all of that was maybe to say goodbye to my mom, because I was standing there and we were leaving when the air sirens began to sound again, and I was looking into her face and I didn't know if I'll see her again sometime. So I arrived to Indonesia on the 13th of March, and I'm maybe the lucky one to be here in safety, but I'm still missing my home. Indonesia is very friendly. I have many friends here who support me, but unfortunately there are some moments like in the social media when you are being bullied because of from the netizens, because of the Russian propagandas and all these fakes. And yeah, so it was hard in the first month, but now I'm okay, and we are trying to raise the awareness of this situation and to share information to everyone. And there are less people who are still bullying Ukrainians for telling the truth. So I think it might be working. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for a very powerful story of yours. Now, I would like to invite Lena Panova to also share your story. Lena, please.
Hello, my name is Lena, and now I'm staying in Ukraine. In general, since the beginning of full-scale invasion, our lives have changed a lot. But I'm going to tell you mostly about volunteering and my experience in volunteering in Bucha, Irpin, and Gostomel. You may know these cities. It's terrible that you have to know that cities because of the situation, but I'm a part of volunteer group called Brave to Rebuild. I can also send you their Instagram page if you want later. We go to the cities every weekend and help clearing the debris in high-rise buildings. And it's terrible that we sometimes don't know the owner of each flat. We don't have contact with them, and we can just we just want them to be safe, and we can just hope that they are abroad or something and they are out of danger. Also, we help people, specific people who can fill out the form for assistance. For example, this weekend, we helped a man who has built his own house, like himself, mostly himself. And after the occupation of Irpin, there are only walls of this house, and that's terrible. He is 50, something like 50 years old, and his children and his wife have gone abroad, I suppose, yeah. And so he's staying alone there. He don't have anywhere to live, but like I'm shocked how he is staying. He wants to build his house again. Anyone could join us anytime. Every weekend we're like going together there and helping that people. And I see the examples of Ukrainian people who is brave enough to continue fighting, even though they don't have anywhere to live and their families are abroad, but they are strong. So, and about our routine life now, as for the day-to-day life, we all keep following the news every day because it's our routine now. We're running to the basements as we hear the alarm every time. It's terrible that people get used to a state of war, but when any day it could be the last day of our life. But besides all of this, we have cafes and restaurants opened, cinemas and shopping centers opened. So people trying to live their lives without falling into despair. We don't forget about the war. It's reasonable, but we trying to be strong and to live our life, to continue living. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. If I may know, Lena, how many people with you every time you help people out there?
It depends, but mostly between 50 to 100. Wow. But we are not at the same place every time. We are for different spots.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Lena, for sharing that story that I haven't heard much in the media. Now I'd like to invite Ivan Fedorov. Ivan, please.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm currently a Ukrainian refugee residing in Germany, in Stuttgart, Germany. I can agree with Barbara on evacuation that it was a nightmare. How me and my mother, we woke up from these devastating explosions, how she ran into my room in tears, and I was so confused until I heard them myself. Yeah, the whole first day we didn't know really what to do. We just looked through the window at the highway that was right in front of our home, and there were tanks all over, 2 lanes, also cars beeping and cheering, and people screaming "Slava Ukraini." And it was a cordial experience, but once again, really devastating. So by the end of the first day of the war, we decided to leave because the news were really unsettling. Yeah, the media was saying that the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, could be done in a span of 3 days, and me and my mother, we got really scared, so we hit the road. Luckily, we lived on the edge of the city, so it was not a big deal to leave the city itself, as the traffic was immense. I couldn't really imagine what would happen if we lived on a different bank of the river. Because initially we wanted to go to Lviv or some western part of Ukraine. The cars were banging, the people were screaming, standing on the edge of the road, raising hands, because everyone wanted to leave, really, and not anyone could afford it. I mean, not everyone has a car or means to travel freely. So we picked 2 people, a boy and a girl, on our way with my mother, and we got to Zhytomyr by 7 a.m. when normally this road would take 2 hours from Kiev to Zhytomyr. So we arrived to the border, and we really didn't expect this amount of people. Again, cars are banging, and most of them were from Kiev, where people are not poor and wealthy people wanted to leave first. So we stood there for 3 days at the border, and we finally left. We didn't even know where to go in Poland. I mean, we met the woman. She was really kind. She gave the numbers of the volunteers, and we called, and we were really grateful that there was a place for us. A Polish family volunteered to keep us for unknown period, but eventually we left to Germany in 2 weeks because we didn't want to be a burden for them, because they clearly wanted to make some money, but it's not an option for us to be a refugee in Poland, because you automatically become bound to this country. And in Germany, we're like not refugees, but temporary migrants. So yeah, anytime we could leave wherever we want. So yeah, they were really kind, and we're still really grateful for them. We keep contact with them to this day. And in Germany, we decided to go to Stuttgart because the friends of my mother, it's actually a funny story, because they also fled the Donbass war in 2014. They found this program and they managed to leave too. Lucky for them. And yeah, we reunited, spent a night at their place. And in the morning, we packed our stuff and went to this point where all the refugees could gather and get the information and get food and be appointed to some other place. And this place was a refugee shelter. It was basically a giant hangar because then already there was nowhere to live, basically, because Stuttgart is not a really big city, and the apartments here, they were full already. In this hangar, they were setting up, so it was only starting. So they invited some cooks there. They made us really delicious meals, and yeah, the first 2 days, I remember we didn't have an opportunity to take a shower. Even we had to go to this my mother's friend's place, but eventually they did set up the showers, the washing machines. I mean, it was not easy to be in time everywhere, to not stand in line, if you know what I'm saying. So I even had to wake up at 5 a.m. to get warm water for me. Yeah, but now it's all good. We got the social housing, and my mother even has friends here. We both come into school. She enrolled integrational courses here, and I'm attending like a normal school, but it doesn't really involve any subjects like math, biology. It's only German for now. Maybe this will be resolved but yeah, it is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. I would like to invite Maria to also share your story. Maria Panova, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I've been staying in Ukraine the whole time, but the topic I mostly want to talk about is social media presence and reaction from Western audience, because in my experience, a lot of people have genuine misconceptions about what history Ukraine and Russia shared and what kind of history it has always been. And people always used to ask extremely ignorant questions, and it used to frustrate me a lot. But I realized at some point that I'm actually a really good candidate to talk to them about it, because they know I'm from Ukraine. They have known for a long time, and so when they can always come to me and check with me what kind of things have actually happened, or what is it misinformation. They can always ask me about history, and I found it really rewarding to find people who check in with me, like, how you doing? Are you doing okay? Do you need any help? They ask me for how they can help, where they can donate. They ask me for information they can also share, or it was extremely surprising that so many people have reached out to me to just even ask if I'm doing okay, simply because it was just unexpected. But at the same time, there is another side to this, because, as I've said, a lot of people just don't know the history of our countries, and so a lot of what I've been doing online, it has been just unwielding some misconceptions that existed for a long time, like, no, we are not the exact same people, no, we have never been, and it's and while I can see some progress, because a lot more people now just stopped asking questions like that, and a lot of people have realized that, well, yeah, this is a sovereign nation. How come this has been allowed to happen at all? But still, the work cannot ever be finished, because from day to day, there are still people, and a lot of them, who will ask, like, why can't Ukraine just give up? Or something like that. Because a lot of misinformation is still being posted online, and a lot of them just don't know any better. So it's kind of like, yes, it's very frustrating. It can make me very angry to read kind of this kind of questions, or this kind of sentences with, well, if you have just given up, none of this have happened. But like, take a deep breath and start to talking to them like, no, and here's why. And while I would say my work in this regard is never finished, I'm still glad I can do this, because it's at least something. I know I'm working and I'm helping people understand, and I know I'm helping my country in a way that is makes people just believe in us, and it's I think it's nice.
Thank you, Maria. It's a very I'm a bit speechless having heard all your stories, because I'm trying to visualize in my mind how was the feeling, and even how is your feeling right now in the middle of war. So I hope this forum can give you room to speak up your mind, and also to have a sharing thoughts from Ukrainian and also Indonesian side. So I would like to move to the Indonesian side. I would like to invite the first British speaker, Kenu Jalal. Kenu, please, the floor is yours.
Right. Just before I get into what I want to say, I just want to say that it's really heartbreaking to hear everybody's stories, especially Ivan's. I think yours hit me the hardest. I really do hope that this conflict will be resolved soon. And I hope that we as fellow youth can provide any semblance of solace to you and to help your cause. I hope that I can forward the support for Ukraine with this.
Thank you so much.
Andy Warhol, I think it was him, he once said that perception precedes reality. And within the next 5 minutes or so, I'm going to prove him right. And I think you're going to believe me. You see, I think the single bravest thing that any person can do is to fight the norm, to go against the currents of the status quo, and to challenge notions others are too afraid to question, all in the pursuit of authenticity to self. Today, I'll try my best to do exactly that. But you might be asking, who would I be challenging? I want to challenge the current state of Indonesian political thought as we know it. It's so unfortunate that the general Indonesian perception of the war is plagued with bias, distortion, and hypocrisy. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you. It's no secret that there's been a growing resentment among Indonesians towards Western powers. This can be attributed to any number of things. For example, there's the incessant foreign entanglements and unnecessary international interventions, such as the invasion of Iraq and the forever wars. But I think the biggest factor here would be Western colonialism. I know it's been perhaps a century since it's been abolished, but the aftermath of Western colonialism remains prevalent in today's Indonesian society, and it manifests itself in the form of resentment and anguish towards Western powers. And this kind of incentivizes our people to grow increasingly more reluctant to embrace Western influences and their presence in geopolitics. However, the main justification towards the backwards push against Western influence fundamentally boils down to the idea of over-involvement internationally. But this also effectively brings attention to the double standards and outright hypocrisy taking place within the realm of Indonesians and their stance on world politics. So, what do I mean by this? More than anything, our people value freedom and sovereignty. Using our country's independence and national identity established after the end of the Dutch colonial times, we created this amazing sense of unity between our people. And it gave rise to such a strong sense of nationalism within our nation. So it's evident that we value freedom, that we respect sovereignty, and that we're tethered to this idea of independence. But if that's true, why are so many of our people remaining mute in these times of war? It's like they don't understand that this war challenges the very basis of democracy and threatens to undermine the principles of sovereignty and independence that international law has tried so hard to establish. How could we ever oppose the principles we claim to hold true to ourselves? Because if we do, then who are we to call ourselves advocates of freedom? What makes us any better than our oppressors? We should be fighting on the side of freedom, not this illiberal authoritarian regime tethered to unremitting foreign aggression. But that being said, I'd also like to remind you that this tragedy is also a warning. It's a warning that mankind remains susceptible to conflict and infighting, which is something I'll touch on a little bit later. But the only way we can avoid these issues in the future is to listen to the voices of the victims in the present. We have to learn from their experiences to hopefully spiral upwards towards a more sustainable and peaceful world. In fact, let's take it a step further. Let's listen to the voices most pure and unfiltered, the voices speaking only the most truthful of truths. We need to listen to the youth. We need to give them a voice in which they can speak freely, with the omission of filters or lies, and where they can be true to themselves and their hearts. It's up to us to truly hear their cries for help and their sirens of warning. This, however, isn't just a cry for help, it's a call to action. We need to listen to the youth. We need to listen to the people, heart to heart.
Thanks a lot, Keanu. I think you shared a well-observed message, clear and very passionate points. Now I'd like to invite Ayla Sumampau to also share your opinions and also your thoughts, please. Ayla.
Good afternoon to everyone here today. Whether an Indonesian or Ukrainian student, I think we can all agree that these past few months have been a devastating one. We go online, look at the news, and all we can see is death and destruction. The war has left so many people displaced, so many lives turned upside down, and so many futures left uncertain. The future may seem bleak, but one thing is for sure: Ukraine will survive. For not only do we see death and destruction, but unity and perseverance. We see thousands of Ukrainians, whether male or female, young or old, stay back and defend their country. We see the Ukrainian national anthem being sung in underground shelters. We see Ukrainian residents make homemade Molotov cocktails in an attempt to ward off Russian forces. Everywhere across Ukraine, we see the resilience of the Ukrainian people. And not only has it served as an inspiration towards the rest of the international community, but it has also shown other autocratic governments that national sovereignty and independence must be taken seriously. Ukraine's resistance towards Russian attack has signaled to the rest of the world that independence must be cherished and democracy kept. At a time where autocratic governments are stepping into power, it is important to show that any state, whether big or small, rich or poor, deserves a right to govern itself without the influence and threat of another state looming over its head. Ukraine's courage, the courage of its people, has been a pillar to that idea. And so Ukraine will continue to fight. It will continue to show Russia that states cannot be bullied into subservience, and it will call on other countries to do the same. So to all the Ukrainians here today, I would just like to say that I cannot begin to understand the situation you are in, the pain to see the country you call yours being harassed by foreign power, to see the state of your home as you seek asylum in a foreign land. But just know that there is always hope, even at times of despair. Hang on to that hope. Use that hope. The time will come where you can safely return to your home. No matter how long it will take, Ukraine's independence will remain intact. Meanwhile, countries from around the world should continue to apply sanctions towards Russian banks and exports. America, as well as Europe, should increase its efforts to reduce its dependence on Russian oil and gas and look towards renewable energy or other sources of oil and gas instead. World leaders should rally together, present a united force, and show Russia that a threat against Ukraine's democracy and sovereignty is a threat against world democracy and sovereignty. Until then, the Ukrainian spirit of freedom must be kept strong. As Lal Bahadur Shastri once said, the preservation of freedom is not the task of soldiers alone. The whole nation has to be strong. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ayla. That was a very powerful messages. Thanks a lot. Now, I would like also to invite the last speaker from Indonesian side, Dira Dharmakusuma. Dira, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Dira Dharmakusuma. I'm a 16-year-old student from Jakarta, Indonesia. Today, I'd like to touch upon the power of the youth. As a teenager, my interests and my passions have always laid around quality education and global citizenship. A quick Google search will tell you that global citizenship is the idea that our identity transcends geography or political boundaries, and that our responsibilities or rights are derived from membership in a broader class, which we know as humanity. Although this definition is quite simple to understand, actually becoming a global citizen is much more complex. My path as an activist began with the words, "Don't be too political. Children don't decide anything. It's all up to the grown-ups. It all depends on the grown-ups." The same thing happened to me when I tried to take part in campaigning about the ongoing unrest in Ukraine. I was restricted from speaking up simply because such political topics were uncomfortable to be heard. In reality, the state of humanity is not an easy pill to swallow. But frankly, it shouldn't be an easy pill to swallow. In Ukraine, the country's young people have been forced to make decisions much tougher than most adults are capable of. For Ukraine's young people, February 24th marks a turning point in their life. Before that date, they were young. They lived normal lives like us Indonesian youth. They went to school, they ate breakfast, they had dinner. But from that day on, they were forced to become older. The invasion encumbered them with responsibilities far beyond what anyone their age, what I should have to bear, demanding that they behave heroically, when elsewhere in the world, they would be expected simply to behave. Today, I reflect on friends I've met in this very meeting room: Barbara, Lena, Yvonne, Maria. They are young people who met unexpected hills and didn't turn around, but anticipated the possibilities and opportunities behind them. They're young people who witnessed the sacrifices of those before them, and they have made it their duty to carry their legacy. Young people who are aware that in order to change, we must be comfortable with discomfort. The same thing goes for us youth outside of Ukraine. Just because we live outside of Ukraine doesn't mean we should pretend that issues don't exist. These topics will become unheard headlines. They'll become forgotten problems, and they'll become an underlying itch under humanity's skin that never seems to go away. In reality, this itch isn't just a simple mosquito bite. They're real people in need of support, people who do not have the luxury of ignoring the itch. For my beloved Ukrainian youth and friends, I have to say that we are here. As youths, we are here to listen, and we are here to provide support. For my fellow Indonesian youths, one of the best things we can do as youths is to never forget who we are as Indonesia. Hold our national values close. Live by our national motto, unity in diversity. Make ourselves comfortable with diverse perspectives. Seek diverse stories of youths like yourself in Ukraine. Seek diverse ways to help, and seek ways to speak up. When they say you're just a child, don't be discouraged to take action. Instead, answer, yes, I am a child, and that is my advantage. That is my edge. And I will use this superpower to help my sisters and brothers in Ukraine regain their youth, their voice, and their freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dira. Thank you for all the three Indonesian speakers who are delivering a very passionate points and also sharing a valuable and clear messages to our friends in Ukraine. Now, I would like to move to the sessions of question and answers, which this sessions is open to all audiences in here. And I would like to do it in the 2 rounds. So the first round, I would entertain 3 questions, and then in the second round, it's also the same, another 3 questions. I encourage students from Indonesia can ask the question first in the first round. So if you would like to ask a questions, please click the button of hand raise, and I would like to call you. And you can ask your question directly. So if you have any questions, please, you can raise your hand. Yeah, please don't be shy. It's it's an open forum. You can ask anything. You can be as candid as you can. Yes, if you have any.
Yes, I can ask a question.
Okay, Ivan, please, please, Ivan. Yeah.
If you could reverse the time to that particular moment you first read about Ukraine being invaded by Russia, what would your feelings be? How would you describe them?
Oh, I think that's a very good question. I think it's good to hear directly the answer. So from Indonesian side, anyone who want to answer? Maybe Kanu, you want to answer that questions?
I'm so sorry, your audio was like for just a moment. Do you mind repeating that just one more time?
Yes, if you could reverse the time to that moment you first read about Ukraine being invaded by Russia in the news, what would your feelings be? How would you describe them?
That was a very long time ago, but I think in general, I felt this immense sense of distraught confusion and just general bafflement, I assume. I think most people see the war as something sudden though, but in retrospect, anybody who was familiar with geopolitics would recognize that the tension leading up to the war has been building up for decades. So I think it was ever since the collapse of the USSR, and then in 2014, Crimea and Donbas were both annexed, and now this in very recent years. I think the history between Ukraine and Russia has always been unsteady, but that doesn't mean that it's not unfortunate that the relationship finally tipped. So despite not necessarily being overly surprised. I was just so saddened by what had happened, and it was a day that I wish would never come, and it felt almost surreal, despite knowing that there was a likelihood of that happening at one point in time or another. It just still felt so unfathomable to me that something of that magnitude could actually occur.
Thank you for your genuine answer.
Thank you. Maybe Yulia, yeah. I think before Yulia, Ayla or Dira want to add something? I think that's a very good question from Ivan. If the time reversed, what would be your feelings? Maybe Ayla or Dira, if you want to answer that.
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So basically, before Russia actually decided to invade Ukraine, there was a lot of news that was covering Russia's military presence near the Ukrainian border, and I was keeping up with that news because apparently I subscribe to like a couple of like news outlets, so I was keeping up to date. And actually, me and my dad, we both have a certain passion for geopolitics, so we were discussing about the likelihood of a Russian invasion, and we both thought that like it would be kind of unlikely for Russia to threaten the geopolitical state of the world by invading Ukraine, especially since Ukraine is already a pre-established democratic country and has its own sovereignty. So we thought that it was unlikely. But then on the day that Russia invaded Ukraine, I remember my dad coming up to me and telling me, and we both just sat in our living room watching CNN. And I remember there was this woman, this like newswoman who was covering and interviewing Ukrainian people who are taking refuge in underground shelters. And I remember almost like I was feeling really, really emotional, and I felt really, really heartbroken over the fact that Russia decided to do it. And I kept replaying the question, why would Russia do it? Especially since so many lives were at stake. And I know that my heartbreak can't even compare to the heartbreak that my Ukrainian friends right now must have felt. But nonetheless, I empathize with you and I sympathize with you. And if you need anything at all, you can always count on the Indonesian youth to help you guys. So, yeah.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you. This is so heartfelt of you.
Great. Dira, if you want to add something before I move to Yulia, I think, yeah.
I think I'll add something quite short. When I first heard of the news of the invasion in Ukraine, I was confused and overwhelmed of what to do. I'm an avid debater, so I would join Model United Nations and Congress, things like that. In those types of simulations, similar issues are brought up as if they were real. But this time, it is real. It is happening, and there are real people at stake. So when I heard the news, I try to take it in that perspective. You know, what would I do as a delegate or the delegate of Indonesia? And how would I approach this? I didn't get a definite answer. I did not know what to do. News headlines, they were overwhelming as well. I didn't know what sources to rely on, especially because a lot of things in social media happened and a lot of things were misleading, misinformation. I eventually learned to take a break from news, looking at it every second of every day. I would focus on bigger news sites that were known to be reliable. And that was how I at least coped with hearing such issues. But my struggle of understanding the issue, that doesn't beat your struggle as a real person in Ukraine during the time it happened. So just like what Ayla said before, if you need anything, you can always count on the Indonesian youth to help. And we will voice you. We will be your voice in times where you can't.
Thank you, Dira. Happy to know that you're also part in a lot of Model UNs. It's also sharing my, I'm also part of it. And yes, I think I would ask the same questions. If I'm still active in Model UN and this happened, I would be questioning about why this happened, right? It's very shocking to know the invasion happened on 24th of February. Now, I would like to move to Yulia. I think you just raise your hand. I'm sorry to keeping you a moment. And then I would like also to invite others to ask questions. I think after Yulia, I would like to ask another questions. I'll invite everybody, and then I'll move to another round. Yes, Yulia, please.
Selamat sore semuanya, saya Yulia. Saya sangat gembira hari ini berada di sini di konferensi ini. Saya akan bertanya dalam bahasa Inggris biar semuanya mengerti saya. Hi everyone, thank you for this great meeting, sharing emotions, thoughts. My question will be like about the Indonesian government, because for us, for all Ukrainian, it's really important to know what is Indonesian government's response toward the war in the Ukraine. And it's like, because we've heard a lot that someone tell it's just a conflict, someone has a lot of thoughts, but in general, what the response of Indonesian government for this?
Thank you, Leah. Should I translate your first two sentences of Bahasa to your Ukrainian friend?
Of course. I think it will be
your Bahasa
great.
is very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. So I think that's a good question. I think I don't have any liberty to answer that question since I'm a moderator. I would like to invite our Indonesian friends to answer that. Maybe who wants to answer that questions? Keanu or Alia or Dira or other Indonesian friends, if you would like to answer that questions.
I can answer that question.
Yes, please, Ayla, please. Yeah.
The question was about what was Indonesia's government's response, right? Oh, okay.
Right.
So I think, if I'm not mistaken, what I read was that Indonesia actually abstained from either condemning or being for the war. So I think right now we're in a neutral kind of position, but I do know that our president Joko Widodo, like not a while back ago, visited Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president, and also Vladimir Putin, which is Russia's president. And I think that both countries' president will come to the G20 meeting that's going to be held in Indonesia, and they will talk about. Recently, I think the topic of discussion is the grain exports and whether or not Ukraine will be allowed to safely export its grain so that we can help alleviate the global food crisis. But as of right now, I think that, especially in terms of politics, the Indonesian government is neutral because there are a lot of different kind of like, different types of like, they have to consider a lot of things. But if you were to ask personally for me, I strongly condemn the war, and I strongly condemn Russia's aggression. But if I were to speak in behalf of the Indonesian government, they're more in a more neutral state of mind. So, yeah.
Thank you for an honest answer, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you. To add information about that, Yulia, from Ayla, I think Indonesian government position can be seen from the United Nations General Assembly resolutions, which condemning the war, which my government, our Indonesian government, is the co-sponsor to that resolution. I think since we are sponsoring that resolution, it shows where we are in regards to the war. Definitely in the grassroots and FVCI, in a stand with Ukraine on this, definitely. So I would like also to invite others. Yes, David, you can share your thought or have questions. Please, David.
Hi everyone, my name is David, and I would like to ask a question. If Indonesia has been faced with a situation like this before in its history?
Well, that's a good question. So I would like to hand that questions to Indonesian friends. Who wants to answer that questions? Maybe I'll add again, or Dira or Keanu, if you want to add. Yeah.
I can add things. Sorry.
Yes,
please. The question was if Indonesia has faced something similar in the past.
Yes, yes. Have we had a similar situations in the past? Yeah.
I think that, like what Keanu mentioned in the introduction, we were invaded by the Netherlands for 300 years. And then afterwards, we were invaded by the Japanese for a couple years. But as of recently, and I might be wrong, but I don't think we've had any big conflict with another country. And I hope that that will remain. But as of the past, in around like the 19th century, we were invaded and colonized by both the Japanese and the Netherlands. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So I here Pak Dino has a questions in the group chat, and it's good to ask it now in the floor. And after that, I would like to invite the second round, which is focused on Indonesian, who ask the questions to our Ukrainian friends. So Pak Dino asks, what do you think of people who try to make a profit from the war? Some businesses are trying to do this, right? Buying cheap Russian oil, etc., and etc. So this question goes to the both sides, to Ukraine and also to Indonesian friends. Maybe Barbara, you want to answer to that questions, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. And actually, it's a very important and hot topic right now because they are like country businesses and people who are trying to profit on this situation. And my reaction is very simple and strict, if I can say like this, because if a person is making easy money on the war, like buying oil, gas, different like under the sanctions products, this person's hand are already in our blood. Because as long as you buy oil, gas from Russia, as long as you help Russia to avoid sanctions, you are helping Russia to kill Ukrainians. Every dollar, every small every money you spend on this products Russia produce, they buy bullets and bombs and missiles and they kill people. So it's you have to know about it, and people who do these things, who profit on the war, they usually know about it. And I think it must be very it's I don't have words for it because I feel very mad at it and ashamed that in our world in the 21st century, there are still people who can do such things, who can literally support war and support murders, even in that silent way. Thank you.
Thanks. Ivan?
Yes, I absolutely agree with Barbara. To my mind, it is egregious that some people still profit from this war. I even know some Instagram photographers who disguise themselves as Ukrainians, even though they are Russians who fled, who needed to flee the country due to the repressions. Also here in Germany, to the famous chocolate Rittersport is being condemned because it's still continuing to be sold to lead the business in Russia. Also, Nestle company. I think we should try to abstain as much as we can from this produce. As Barbara said, it's literal blood of Ukrainians on their hands. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ivan. Alona and then Yulia. Alona, you can go first.
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry for joining this wonderful conversation that's much late. First of all, I want to tell a little bit about myself. My name is Alena. I'm Ukrainian volunteer. Since the war started, I used to volunteer in my hometown, Poltava city. Then I moved to Poland in spring, and I started to volunteer in Krakow. Then I moved to Warsaw. I used to work in Warsaw train stations, helping Ukrainian refugees. Right now, I'm working with few foundations. We are traveling through different cities in Poland. We're visiting different shelters and refugee houses. And I face the situations that right now a lot of people all around the world. First of all, I'm very thankful for your attention and that you're still thinking about the war. I know that everyone right now is become more exhausted, but here I've met a lot of people all around the world, from Malaysia, from Great Britain, United States, oh my goodness, from Africa, who came here to help Ukrainian refugees. But I face the situation that some people are trying to open their foundations or companies for helping Ukrainian refugees, but they want to get found money. Some money they put into their own pockets, and only some they spend for refugees. So we also faced the situation when people donate for the good thing, but you never know where your money will go for. And this is also kind of unfair business.
Thanks a lot, Alona. Yulia, I think you raised your hand first. And then after Yulia, I would like to go around first to Indonesian questions and then get back to our Ukrainian friends. Yulia, please.
Yes, I just wanted to add a couple of words according to this. It's not, we are living in not a perfect world, and it's inevitable that some people get some profit from a war. It was, it is now, and it will be in the future if war will still be in this world. But what I want to say is that each of you to think what you can do to just stop this business flow. The demonstrations to stop buy Russian products, Russian food, I don't know, anything that connected to Russia. And you actually, each of you have so much power to influence on all that stuff, on all that profits, and to make your government stop to do this, to businessmen stop to do this, and just think how you can influence on this. And I think it will be an answer. And also add here in the chat that for me, just invite such people to Ukraine for a couple of days to visit Irpin, Bucha, Hostomel, and Kharkiv, and all other big cities that was like destroyed to the scratch. And I think they will not maybe understand, but they see to what they spend their monies. I think that was all from me.
Thank you, Yulia. Now I would like to go to Keanu. I think you just raise your hand. So I would like to go to, you start the second round, which is the Indonesian questions. So Keanu, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I was going to answer the previous question about.
Oh, you can also answer that questions. Yeah, please.
I think most of you guys already made my points for me, especially who really give a passionate and genuine answer. I definitely do ethically and morally. There's no debate that it's incorrect for these Russian businesses and finance them in a way that allows them to keep going with this war campaign of theirs. However, I think it's also important to highlight that sometimes that how unfortunate it is that we keep doing it, and sometimes we don't really have a choice. Like most of Europe is dependent on Russia for gas, for fuel. So without Russia, they wouldn't have any energy. The issue with this is that they're essentially feeding and pumping money into their aggressors. So it's so unfortunate that we're reliant on Russia for so many things. And because of that, it's feeding into this war that they've created. I think that's one of the biggest issues about the war right now, is just how financially stable Russia has become as a result of their dominance in a lot of these industries. On top of that, I think there's somewhat of a futility woven into this. A lot of people, they see war not as something that makes people lose lives, not as something that tears apart families. They see it as an economy, as a business, something to profit off of. Therefore, somebody will always want to capitalize off of war, off of suffering. Do I think this is okay? Absolutely not. But I also want to advocate using this, that this is why we as the youth should speak up, and hopefully in the future try and alleviate a lot of these war-hungry, profiteering people.
Thank you. Now I would like to offer the microphone to Dira. Dira, you have a questions, please, and then Razak, you will have a floor after that. Please, Dira.
Thank you. My question is quite brief. How is the Ukrainian government reacting to the youth's involvement in Ukrainian geopolitics?
All right, so who wants to answer that question? So then let's answer that questions. If Razak, you want to answer that questions, please, and Amabel also. Okay, Amabel, you want to ask that? You want to answer that questions?
I'm sorry, I would like to ask a question instead.
All right, let's answer that questions first, and then another one or two for your questions. So, others? Okay, so since I think it's good for take all the questions at the first hand. So Razak and Amabel, you can ask the questions. So Amabel, please, and Razak, and then we can have around answering those three questions. So please, Razak, since you raised the first hand.
All right, my question. My name is Razak, and my question pertains mainly to the evacuation period. But as a teenager during such a difficult time, what helped you guys keep level-headed? And how has that experience, the evacuation experience, affected your outlooks on life? Does it make you more appreciative of the life that we've been given?
All right, thank you. Amabel?
Hello, everyone. My name is Amabel. And first of all, I would like to say that I couldn't imagine what you guys have been going through. But I would like to ask a question for the Ukraine students. How has your education been impacted by the war?
All right, so we have two questions. First question from Dira, and then second question from Razak about evacuations, and the third question is from Amabel about educations. I think Lela, you can go first.
Okay, if talking about the education, it's quite complicated situation now because we have an experience because of COVID. We are studying like in distance. It's okay, but it's not the same as we have now because students sometimes didn't have a connection. So this year was hard, and mostly people didn't get enough lessons because it was impossible. Like if somebody is now on a road, if somebody is in a basement or something, it was impossible. But now I feel like our universities making everything for us to continue studying. I'm going to university this year, and it's not so easy as it was, and the exams are completely different and unexpected. Like everything is changing. It's hard, and we couldn't predict this, but we're trying to do everything like in order to people, to children to be like on the way. So we're trying. Everything is changing, but everything is gonna be fine with education.
Thank you, Lena. Barbara?
Yeah, I would love to answer about the evacuation and a bit touch the Tira's question with a bit, but I actually, can I please ask you to repeat it, please?
Okay.
About the
You want to repeat from
government.
Dira?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dira, you can repeat your questions.
Hi, I just wanted to know if you could shed some light on how the government in Ukraine is viewing the youth and how the youth is involving themselves in the politics of the war.
Okay. So first of all, I want to talk about the evacuation because it's like my experience, and actually it was like the world outside changed absolutely, and your side of the world changes when you're running with the only bag with 2 sweaters and nothing more and a book, and you start to think like that there are things more valuable than to have like materially expensive things. It's not that valuable as things like to have a place to sleep and your animals and your family near you. And I mean, I had a very sentimental moment in this camp organized by the volunteers, where you could like leave for sleep with the animals in this old water park, and the volunteer just gave me like the hot tea and let me sit with them, just not to enter that room where there were people crying and lying with their dogs, because it was people from everywhere, from Kharkiv, from Mariupol, and most of them didn't have home anymore, didn't have their relatives, and I just didn't want to go there and see it. And it was so valuable when they just let me sit with them and was not asking about what was happening and about my experience. We were just talking about like usual things. And it's so precious to have an opportunity to talk about how your life is going on, and like sitting in front of the TV and eat snacks and don't worry about your family and friends all the time. That's what's the most valuable things for me now. I see their value now after the evacuation and everything, because it's, I mean, the person who just contacted this war situation and everything, my experience wasn't that tragic. It wasn't as tragic as most Ukrainians felt. But if you just like touch this situation, if you experience it, you'll never feel the same like as you were before it. And about the government and the youth, actually I'm afraid I was not very into the politics until the war began. Unfortunately, I was that artist and everything. But we in our like schools and gymnasiums, we were organizing, like the schools were organizing the MUN things. So I think it's more into the school system, but I guess the government is kind of like working with that too. But I don't think we have like any special programs to involve like youth in the politics. I'm not sure about it, at least, because I'm sorry, not into this.
Thank you, Barbara. Yulia, and then after this, I would like to entertain another 2 questions from Indonesian side. Yeah, so please prepare, everybody. So Yulia, please.
Okay, I can actually add a bit about youth and the government because I'm already 26, and when the revolution began in 2013, I was there. I was on Maidan and on Maidan revolution and demonstration, and I just want to add that Ukrainian government always been very supportive, starting from the 2013, because actually the youth, the students, I was on a first year of my studying at university, actually we start the revolution because of the our president Yanukovych that time. That time he didn't want to join the European Union and wanted to go with Russia. And I think all our population at that time understood what the consequences will be for us, and we all stand up and we all speak up that time on Maidan, and there were a lot of people killed. Some of my friends were killed because of that. But since that time, Ukrainian youth were hurt every minute and every time. And I know a lot of my friends, a lot of students are now volunteering and helping even Ukrainian government with information war, for example. So yeah, Ukrainian youth is really involved into it and really supporting now.
Thank you, Yulia. Now, I would like to invite other two questions. If friends from Indonesia has questions. Okay, Ayla, please.
My question is that, do you think that the culture within Ukraine, the Ukrainian culture, plays a large role in how resistant the Ukrainian people are towards Russian forces?
Thank you. So who wants to answer that? Maria, please.
If I understood the question correctly, I came from a background. I used to study in film university as a film major, so I think I have some experience in what in the culture in what Ukrainian culture is and how it's being supported now. And I regret to say it, but it's not doing all that good. Ukrainian culture is extremely rich, and it has always been. And it has always been a part of Ukrainian resistance. You can, like Barbara has said, during the Soviet Union, there were lots of artists and poets who were repressed for expressing their opinions and stating that they are Ukrainians and proud to be Ukrainians. But somewhere around now, a lot of people try to orient what it's like outside of the Ukraine, like how, especially in film industry, a lot of Ukrainian movies that are being made, they try to copy Hollywood movies, and it's not exactly right because it isn't inherently Ukrainian culture being represented. And recently, even they are trying to sell off our collection of movies in the Citizenship Center. And it's infuriating because usually when stuff like that is happening, because it has happened a lot, and even before the war, there was a movement against selling off the national movie theaters, where Ukrainian movies can be shown that aren't, being the student movies, they're not being sponsored. So like the national movie theaters, they were trying to sell them off, and we were protesting against it. And it saddens me to say that, but now I think that people who are trying to sell of the collection of the movies are just using the war as an opportunity because they know we can't protest during the war. and really, it's infuriating. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or not, but this is really bad because we have to strive to preserve it and preserve it within the national treasure, not as a company's treasure, because it has never ended well. So, but at the same time, a lot of artists, I know lots of artists, I am somewhat an artist myself, but a lot of artists, Ukrainian, they have been so extremely active during the war. There's incredible artworks, and all of them are helping to shed lights. And there's a project where artists share their works, and their works in support of Ukrainian and Ukrainian army have been then painted as murals on houses or printed as postcards and sent to the armies, so to show support. So it's a lot of different things, and I hope that this war will be able to teach Ukrainians to value themselves as Ukrainians and to value the culture we have. Because before the start of full-scale invasion, it hasn't been doing that way. There were lots of movement to support it, but at the same time, lots of things that were trying to destroy it.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for telling the experiences and also what you observe and also what you're feeling. Thank you, Maria. We're running out our time. This has been a very candid conversation, which I very appreciated, and I would like to invite to close the sessions, closing from Keanu and also Barbara, and I would like to invite Barbara to close the sessions and have the final message, and then I'll pass the microphone to Keanu. Barbara, please.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everyone for spending your time today with us. It's very valuable. And I'm very grateful for all the participants, for all the speakers and audience, and FPCI and moderators for this opportunity to share our pain and our emotions with the people of Indonesia. Today, youth is the future of our countries, and that's why we need to learn how to communicate with each other, how to support each other, how to find the truth, and how to give it. We need to build the dialogue because we want to make friends, not war. I really appreciate your coming to this event, and I hope this event will help people to hear our scream, to feel our emotions, and to understand what is going on at last. The war is not over, and we all have to speak up about it, shout about it, because it's not only war for our future. It's not fight for our independence, not only. It's also fight for the democracy, for the truth, and for the sovereignty of the whole world. Wish everyone peace, and thank you all again.
Thank you, Barbara. A very strong message. Again, let's give a big hand, through the video. Keanu, please, you can have your final word.
So, as this event draws to its end, I'd like to bring attention to a few things. Rather, this time I really want to speak from the heart, unfiltered, right? No more debates, no more facts. It's just me. When we think of the word war, what comes to mind? Death, destruction, pain, agony, suffering? Perhaps, but what most people forget is the other side of the coin. War, as we know it, is a figure of duality. Think of the anguish and affliction it spreads It paves the way for fellow humans to extend a helping hand during times of need, devote not only support, but solidarity. Solidarity that can be harnessed into, and in time, prosperity. A seed is responsible for just one tree. Over time, that same seed may give rise to an entire forest. Here today not only to offer solidarity and confer solace to the war-plagued people of Ukraine, stand firmly against the incessant violence that has plagued and affected countless lives. Not disease, predators, nor natural disasters is mankind's single greatest adversary, not only in recent years, but even dating back to the incipience of our species. I hope that today we've served as a beacon of forward progression in the century-spanning campaign against conflict, hostility, and inhumanity within our own people. I hope that today we will be one of the many seeds helping to grow the forest of amity and truth. Ukraine and suffering.
And I think,
and bask in the sunlight of freedom. We need to let the light of liberty shine through the open window. I think it was Robert Frost who once said that freedom lies in being bold. So, or silence your screams, and never pull a punch or lie still on the ground defeated. Don't go quietly into the night and falter at the feet of adversity. Become the voice of the mute, the reverberation of exhortation towards the evil and tyrannical. Be bold and be free. Be the sunlight, but never the curtain.
thank you, Keanu. So, after hearing all of your stories, I can feel how terrible the cost of war is, and we cannot afford to see it worsened or have another one. Through this afternoon conversations of the two youth groups, we can learn a lot from stories that are not covered by media mainstreams. A genuine feeling and genuine stories. The youth definitely have a responsibility and role to preserve and fight for the values of what our countries believe in, such as sovereignty, national unity, and integrity. And for Indonesians, brothers and sisters, we cannot take our national values for granted. We do hope that the war can stop as soon as possible and differences can be resolved. The international community, including Indonesia, has a moral obligations to contribute to the process. And for youth, my friends, I would say, in the time of social media, in the time of Instagram, Twitter, TikToks, and everything, right? Please use it to speak up your mind, what is right, and please don't be afraid. Stay strong, our Ukrainian brothers and sisters. You are always in our thoughts and prayers. We love you. Indonesia loves you. That's I would like to say. Let's give a big hand for our Ukrainian brothers and sisters. And thank you very much. My name is Kelvin Ko from FVCI. Thank you for joining us. And please, who are in the Zoom room, don't leave. We're going to have a photo sessions. Thank you, everyone. Give a big hand. Any emotions you can share.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite everybody to have a photo session, so please don't leave. So please open up your camera. Please be in the best angles of yours, right? I know every person has angles. So yeah. So I would like to invite Wahyu to please direct us, and you can show us your papers as well. All right. Okay. All right. So if not mistaken, Cindy, everybody has something to show it, right? So please take your paper. There you go. Yes, perfect. All right. Okay. All right, so Wahyu, I think you're ready. Okay. Everybody smile. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, once more. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a good evening and stay strong. Keep connected, please. Anything. Please connect in Facebook, in Twitter, Instagram, TikToks, any platforms. Please share your numbers. You can drop all your numbers in a group chat. So, everybody can save numbers and just say hello in another day. So thank you very much. I think, yeah, over back to you, Cindy or Ray, if you want to say something. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Barbara, and all the Ukrainian students and Keanu with the Indonesian students as well. As Calvin said, drop your number in the group chat. Barbara, I think the Ukrainian students aren't in the group chat, and it'd be good to invite them so that, we can keep in touch. Yeah.
Drop your Instagram, right? Don't drop your LinkedIn, yeah? If that is just a job, right? Just drop your Instagram, your Facebook.
I'm sorry, I'm just not sure that some of them is in WhatsApp because.
Okay. What's the best platform?
I think you can just invite them to the group. Yeah.
What's the best? Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll just ask now if they have WhatsApp. Oh, Instagram.
Yeah.
Or you could just drop your numbers and Instagrams in the group chat, and we can